The year was 1989. Sega released the Genesis console, which was a big win for them against Nintendo during that time. With Mario being a very popular character and even the mascot for Nintendo, Sega needed to figure out how they could create a character who was more appealing to their audience. And with the help from Japanese artist Naoto Oshima, Sega was able to find their answer in 1991 with the character Sonic the Hedgehog. Early Sonic games were some of the best in the market, with the releases of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which introduced Tails, and even Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which introduced Knuckles. The series was highly loved by so many that the popularity grew, which meant for even more games to be developed by the Sonic team. Now, there have been a lot of games that have been released. Like, a lot. And as time progressed, the series slowly reinvented itself, which eventually created different eras for the Blue Hedgehog. When it comes to the games that have been released by Sega, some were received extremely well, like Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Colors, and even Sonic Mania. But then there are other times when we were given Sonic 06, Sonic Boom, and Sonic Forces.
This is trash.
Trust me, there's a lot more, but we'd be here for a while. Oh, son of a— After the major disappointment that was Sonic Forces, Sonic Team quickly went back to the drawing board in order to recover from that game. And during the 2021 Game Awards, we caught a slight glimpse of what was to come. Sonic Breath of the Wild. Sonic Frontiers. Spoilers ahead. Now, this game isn't like the previous Sonic games whatsoever, due to one big feature that was finally implemented as the main focus: open world exploration. Correction on my part. This game is actually not an open world, but rather an open zone, so bear with me as I constantly call this game an open world. My bad. Back to the video. For years, Sonic has been a game that was mostly focused on 2D platforming and boost running, with occasional features that were added to certain games. But with Sonic Frontiers, it introduced brand new mechanics and gameplay for the fans to try out. But was it enough to forgive the developers for all the crap they've released in the past? I'm looking at you, Sonic Frontiers. Don't think I'm letting you off the hook. Well, let's find out by looking closer into the open world. The fact that Sonic Team was finally able to create something outside of the old level progression was a sign of improvement on their part. And I was pretty optimistic and wanted to see what this game had to offer. Now, I know the game claims to be open world, but in all actuality, each area is sectioned off into separate hubs where the player is able to explore after completing the previous tasks. Each island had a unique setting to them, which allowed the player to experience new sceneries as they ran around, which I did enjoy quite a bit. Well, unique for the most part. The first and last island are pretty much identical, and then there's another island that technically isn't entirely meant for exploration, but there's still the volcanic and desert islands that you can explore. When it comes to most games that have an open world system, there needs to be a way for the player to feel like a part of that world. Some sort of immersion that can grab our attention and make us say, wow, this is how I pictured the world of Sonic to feel like. Instead, we're placed in what can be described as an Unreal Engine 5 landscape, where there's so many open spaces with a whole lot of nothing to show for it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the maps look great, but you can't tell me this is the best the developers can do, because there were still some issues with it. To compensate for the size of the maps, the game is essentially a gigantic collectathon where Sonic has to collect memory tokens, portal gears, vault keys, and the Chaos Emeralds in order to progress through the story. And I honestly wasn't against that idea, because there's a lot of games where you're required to collect things to progress. Perfect example, Mario Odyssey. And that game was great. On top of those items you're required to collect, there are also puzzles you can solve to open more parts of the map. When you hear puzzles, some people might think, oh, a part of the game that can give me a challenge. But Sonic Frontiers isn't like that whatsoever. The puzzles in this game were so easy to the point where it honestly didn't feel rewarding when completing each one I came across. There were puzzles where you would run on a hamster wheel, follow the path of tiles on the floor, and even Tetris. Fucking Tetris! You would think that maybe the difficulty in puzzles increases as you progress through each island, but no. Each one was just, if not more, brain dead as the last. Except for the time trials. Those were pretty fun. And the reason why those were fun was because the movement in this game was fun. Running around the island as Sonic just felt right, and he actually responded pretty nicely to the different turns I took as I ran. Especially with the inclusion of boost running as well. The developers even made it to where you can make adjustments to the camera angles and running speed of the character. They didn't need to do this, but they probably figured they should so the players couldn't complain. It's like those people that complain that Subway is trash, but they're the ones that are choosing what goes on their sandwich. Hey, maybe your taste is trash. On top of the boost running, you can even run faster whenever you collect to the max amount of rings you can carry. There was even a special nod to the Sonic live action movie as he powers up, which I thought was a pretty cool detail. Check out the movie if you haven't already. It was actually pretty good.
Meow?
Not that one. But I could say that it isn't entirely perfect, especially when there doesn't seem to be a sense of momentum as you're running. Whatever speed you're running at during that moment remains the same, especially when you boost. So whatever hill or railing you come across doesn't really change much. It can also be pretty jarring at times when Sonic needs to stop and he just straight up pauses in place without the weight of him sliding him across the floor. Even jumping kills the momentum, which is so off-putting, especially when in boost. However, the fact that there were a lot of platforms for Sonic to run on was cool and felt like a giant playground for him to explore to collect items and launching himself around the map. However, the amount of pop-ins this game had was so bad it honestly took the immersion away from the game. Sometimes the game isn't able to keep up with Sonic, and there would be times he runs into walls that hasn't fully rendered in yet. Another thing to add with the platforms is that for certain maps, there were parts where you would sometimes be forced into 2D sections, which really was annoying to get out of, and honestly shouldn't have been implemented the way that it was, if at all. Also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but for some reason, before you even start the game, there's a setting that asks if you want to play the game in either action style or high speed style. This is a Sonic game. Why would you pick anything other than high speed? Frontiers also included both the Elder and Hermit Coco, who were on the islands to help you upgrade your attack and defensive power and level up your speed and ring capacity. In all honesty, the game already gives you a generous amount of rings to begin with, and it's very easy to get rings in the first place. So you can play through this game with the same amount with little to no problem. As a matter of fact, scratch that. Get rid of the Elder Coco period so we don't have to stand there to level up bit by bit. Of course, Sonic Frontiers can't be a Sonic game without the combat. So, let's talk about the combat. As most people already know, when it comes to the gameplay in traditional Sonic games, you mostly jump, spin dash, and even boost into enemies to defeat them. In this game, they gave Sonic hands. Every time I came across an enemy on the maps, I found it extremely satisfying implementing different combos to defeat them. There's also a skill tree you can use to gain even more skills to help you be more creative when fighting. Some of my favorite skills were the cross slash, spin slash, phantom rush, and the side loop. Among Us. Also, for whatever reason, this game has a parry button, but it's not the one where you have to react to an attack. All you really need to do is hold the button and he just stands there waiting. You can even make him float while he's in the air. Whoa. I also like that not only were there a bunch of different normal enemy types, but there were also different mini bosses as well called Guardians. Each Guardian had its own skill set that required Sonic to find different ways to defeat them. Whether it was by towering the top of a very large Guardian or surfing along the tail of a Guardian, it was quite enjoyable defeating each one. Were they in any way difficult? Not one bit.
Cap.
But I did find it extremely annoying how every time I came across a mini boss, I was instantly forced into a cutscene and activated a battle, when all I wanted to do was just simply pass by. If these were one-time cutscenes, sure, I'd understand, but having to see them every single time, it was ridiculous. Outside of the normal enemies and guardians that you had to face were the bosses of the game called Titans. No, not those Titans. These Titans. Every fight required you to collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds in order to fight them, which was a good change of pace from previous games where at times the Chaos Emeralds were used at the very end. And when you turn into Super Sonic to fight these Titans, it was easily the best part of the game. Being in that form was used extremely well because I felt unstoppable while flying around dodging and attacking each Titan. And the soundtracks that were playing in this game, oh my goodness. The Sonic series has always had major hits, no matter the quality of the game. And with the different tones of music that were included, there would be times where I would be filled with sorrow, but then immediately hit with so much energy and hype, it makes me want to dance. After each boss fight, you fly over to the next island, which results with Sonic losing the Chaos Emeralds once again, and having to collect more Vault Keys to unlock them. And the best way to collect more Vault Keys is through Cyberspace. Cyberspace is essentially a digital world that can only be accessed through different portals once you've collected enough portal gears from the guardians that you've defeated. Entering the portal will play the memories of Sonic, and you'll be tasked to run through the levels in the traditional style of Sonic games. Whether it's through boosting through the maps or 2D platforming, the developers didn't want to steer clear from where Sonic came from. And it's even more evident when you look at how a lot of these levels are just reskins of older levels from previous games. Now, I'm not too broken up about the fact that Sonic Team reused some older maps, but I am a little annoyed that I have to see Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant every other level. On top of that, as Sonic is running through these levels, for some reason, he doesn't feel fast. If you're not boosting, you're not moving. And I don't understand why the developers didn't just make Sonic as functional as he is in the open world. I also wish there was somewhat of a challenge in these cyberspaces, but with the challenges each level had, I found getting an S rank to be extremely easy, except for level 1-2. That was actually challenging. That took me 40 minutes just to barely pass. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy playing through Cyberspace anyways. Listening to the soundtracks as Sonic races to the finish line was just as satisfying as I was running through the open world spaces. Even if the mechanics were a bit problematic without the boost, of course, it's important to understand why Cyberspace exists in the first place. And with the story, everything gets explained. Sort of. So here's the story. The story takes place with Sonic and his friends headed towards Starfall Islands in order to collect the Chaos Emeralds that have ended up on the island. But before Sonic, Amy, and Tails can even land, a mysterious wormhole appears from out of nowhere and separates Sonic from his friends. Now, it's up to him to figure out how he can save them. The first thing that I noticed when I first loaded into the game was the fact that Sonic's voice sounded a lot older.
You tracked the Chaos Emeralds here, right? Let's find out what drew them here.
Which was a sign of him actually aging. I do like Roger as Sonic's voice actor, so hearing him reprise his role once more in this game was awesome. As Sonic finds his friends, he soon learns that they're actually trapped between the digital world of cyberspace and the physical world. So as he tries to help them, he slowly ends up getting corrupted, and that's all thanks to the villain of the game, Sage. I add quotations because she's not really a villain, but she's somewhat influenced by Eggman, who is also on this island trying to use the power that comes from it against Sonic. Sage essentially wants to prevent the thing that caused the destruction of the islands and the Ancients in the past from happening once again. The Ancients were actually the ones that brought the Chaos Emeralds to the world of Sonic due to their planet being destroyed in a great war. They migrated to the Starfall Islands, but unfortunately were found once again and got clapped. Now what's left of them are the ruins on the islands, the cyberspace portals, the Guardians and Titans, and the creatures known as Cocos. Apparently, the spirits of the Ancients live within the Cocos, so whenever they find peace, they kinda just die. Yeah, I don't know. It does take a while to piece everything together, but near the end of the story, the writers just straight up spell it out for you. I'd like to mention the fact that this game also decided that in order for you to progress through the story, you have to play certain mini games, like pinball. Now, I like pinball. I think pinball is a pretty fun game. But when the developers ask you to earn not 1, not 2, but 5 million points to progress, you've lost your damn mind, especially when this game isn't fully functional. There will be times when I lose a ball when it's not even my fault. I mean, the music was pretty nice and I was able to jam a little bit, but that's besides the point. Another complaint that I had was the fact that the final boss fight was supposed to be against the thing that wiped out the entire population of the Ancients, and all it ended up being was a battle against a meteor. What makes it worse is that if you played on the normal difficulty like I did, you missed out on the actual fight that was on the hard difficulty. And all it was just a rip-off version of Galaga. Yep, just shoot your pew-pews and you beat the end. Even the fight before that was more exciting and action-packed. So all that fight did was leave a sour taste in my mouth. The game approaches a more mature theme behind it regarding death and moving on, and I can appreciate the attempts at it. But when the stakes aren't really that threatening, it can be quite underwhelming. Like the cyber corruption that Sonic had to deal with throughout the game. Bro's idle position just made him look constipated. And once he finally gets corrupted, it instantly gets cured by the power of friendship. I did like that we got more information on the world of Sonic, and the insight on Eggman and his daughter. Daughter? That was his daughter? Man, what the? We even got to see Big the Cat once again with his fishing simulator, which was a lot easier than the version in Sonic Adventure 1. A little too easy for my taste, but hey, it's nice to kick back and do some good old fishing every once in a while. But while we're on the topic, let's quickly look at some of the characters that were brought into this game. I think Sonic Frontiers did a good job with how Sonic interacted with his friends, especially with showing how much they've grown as characters as well. Amy has grown a lot and seems to have gotten over her obsession with Sonic, while also being able to have her own personal worldview. The way the two talk to each other while figuring out a way to help the Cocos was interesting to watch. Knuckles, who also ended up on the island, has always been a character who was more mature than Sonic due to the fact that he's the protector of the Master Emeralds. But the scenes that the both of them are in also showed his competitive side and the respect he has for Sonic. And love. These cutscenes were a bit questionable at times. Hopefully there isn't any fan art of them circling around in the internet. And Tails in this game was a character I liked a lot as well because the way that he interacted with Sonic was always a great depiction of true friendship. Tails being able to open up to Sonic about his struggles and Sonic encouraging him always brought a smile to my face. I did find it funny, however, whenever Sonic would reference a bunch of things from previous games like, "Hey Tails, remember saving me from the Deadly Six in Sonic Lost Worlds?" Or, "Whoa, this place reminds me of how we first met on Angel Islands, Knuckles," and many more name drops and references. So, guess this game made a lot of things canon. Like Sticks from Sonic Boom? I think it's obvious that this game still has a lot of things wrong with it. However, I can't help but enjoy it due to the charm it brings with the characters and gameplay. Being able to shut my brain off and just run around the islands is so satisfying, and I'm glad that this is the route that Sonic Team is going with the series. Including the cyberspace for the older fans to play through was also a nice touch, so I hope they improve the mechanics of it to feel more like a traditional Sonic game. Now, would I recommend this game to anyone? In all honesty, as much as I found enjoyment out of it, I would say you're better off playing something else. But if you're a fan of the Sonic games, then this is the game for you. Sonic fans honestly have been through a lot when it comes to the main games, so the fact that Sonic Frontiers was able to take a risk and experiment and not fail entirely is a great sign. So it may not be the perfect game for your average Joe, but you can bet that this will be a lot of Sonic fans' top 5 favorite Sonic games. I don't think this game is perfect, but Sonic Team is certainly headed towards the right direction if they keep this style of gameplay and explore more into the characters. So have you already played Sonic Frontiers? What are your thoughts? And also, what is your favorite Sonic game of all time? Leave a comment down below. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this review on Sonic Frontiers. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and as always, take care everybody.